And at some point, the baby will start to do what's called the internal rotation. So that's when they enter your pelvis like this and they turn to the side, ready to come out. So that is usually happening near the end of labor. And then when you start to feel the urge to push and you're about ready to push, you are 10 centimeters dilated, and your baby also starts to engage into the vaginal canal. You don't have to have anyone do an exam to confirm that you are ready to push. It is totally okay to just listen to your body and push whenever you're ready. But if you want an exam, if you're kind of curious and you just want to know what's going on, if you feel like I feel pressure, I kind of feel like I want to push, but I'm not quite sure, it's totally okay to get an exam. But just know that you don't have to have one. If anyone says to you, like, wait, don't push until we do an exam, I mean, you can choose to accept it or not, but just know that it is not necessary for you to get one. It's never required. So when the baby starts to engage in the vaginal canal, they start coming down and they put some pressure on a pressure point, and the pressure point stimulates the fetal ejection reflex. So this is your body's natural response to spontaneously push. There are certain rare circumstances where you may not experience the fetal ejection reflex, but most of the time you will experience it, and I'll explain kind of when you won't in a second. Basically, what's important to know is that the fetal ejection reflex is just like any other reflex that your body may have. So it's like, sneezing or throwing up or anything that your body does without your conscious effort or control. The fetal ejection reflex is the same thing. So basically your body will, in response to the pressure of your baby coming down into the vaginal canal, will just spontaneously push. And what that looks like is often tightening your belly muscles, having like a bear down experience where you kind of go like, your body like bears down spontaneously, and you don't really have any control over this process. This is a fetal ejection reflex. It's normal, and just listening to your body, allowing the fetal ejection reflex to kick in and to move forward and kind of guide the process is a safe and evidence-based way to push your baby out, reduce your risk for tearing or for exhaustion and for fetal distress. Another model for pushing is called directed pushing. And that's when maybe someone gives you an exam and says, you're 10 centimeters, it's time to, start pushing, and you start pushing right away. Maybe you're on your back and people are holding your legs up and they're asking you to count to 10, like hold your breath, count to 10, engage your tummy muscles, bring your chin to your chest, and just bear down as much as you can. This is okay to do if this is what you want to do, but just know that it's optional. You don't have to do directed pushing if you don't want to. Directed pushing does come with increased risks of exhaustion for you and fetal distress for baby. You are, getting exhausted yourself, but also when you're holding your breath for 10 seconds, and then you take a breath, and then they're like, okay, do another one. And you're like, okay, and you do another one. You're not really breathing well. You're not getting good oxygen, and that can impact your baby's oxygen as well. When you're listening to the fetal ejection reflex, typically what will happen is you'll get these spurts of engaging your tummy muscles and like bearing down in these spurts instead of like holding for the count of 10. And so this allows for your baby to get more oxygen. I wanted to start talking about how you can reduce your risk for tearing by discussing the fetal ejection reflex and pushing your baby out. I think it's an important part of reducing tear risk to approach pushing in this way if you can. If you have an epidural, you probably won't experience the fetal ejection reflex in the same way you would in an unmedicated birth, but some people need the epidural to give them like a moment of support, especially if they've had a long labor, like to take a nap and catch up on their energy. If you have used the epidural as a tool for that, and now you're pushing and you're feeling like you want to have a little more agency, a little more control and feeling, you can turn the epidural off and give yourself more feeling. You can keep it in, but just stop the medication flowing to it. And that can give you an opportunity to potentially have the fetal ejection reflex kick in a little bit, push intuitively if you're able to feel a little more sensation. When the baby starts to come down into the vaginal canal, and they put pressure on this pressure point that will stimulate the reflex. But every once in a while, what happens is that the back of baby's head will be facing the back vaginal wall. So the baby will be coming down facing forward instead of facing backward. This is called OP positioning, or posterior, when the baby is facing forward like this. It's a variation of normal, and babies absolutely can have vaginal births this way. It typically doesn't cause many issues, but it can sometimes make birth a little bit more painful or long. Sometimes it can make pushing a little bit longer. And every once in a while, you may feel like you need to have some support with pushing because it's a little harder for you to feel the pressure of baby and to get that reflex. And that's because on the back of baby's head, there is this like spot back here you can see. And this is like an empty space. So the baby's putting pressure on the vaginal canal, but they're kind of missing this one spot here. And so because of that gap, you might not get as much pressure on that pressure point as you would if baby was facing this way. Typically baby's head, their chin is tucked. So you're getting baby's face and body fully. And so there's like this full pressure that you're getting compared to when you're like this and you're not getting that full range of pressure. So sometimes that can lead to someone not getting the fetal ejection reflex. So maybe they're 10 centimeters, they've been checked and we're kind of waiting and they're just not getting the reflex to kick in at all. And this is rare, but it can happen. So I just want you to know that. In this situation, it might be beneficial to have a provider or a doula or someone to guide you and support you in connecting with your pelvic floor, softening it and engaging your tummy muscles and pushing a little bit, trying to get the baby a little lower. Sometimes just by doing some directed pushing in a more gentle way, you may be able to get baby a little lower, and sometimes that can stimulate the fetal ejection reflex. Other times, very rarely, I've seen moms just have to continuously, consciously add extra like force to get baby down. But most of the time, you will experience the fetal ejection reflex in an unmedicated birth, and you will be able to feel all that pressure of baby coming down, and that will just spontaneously kick in this reflex to bear down and push. The difference between having a lot of pressure, which means baby is like coming down and you're feeling pressure and you're kind of feeling like you want to push, but you're not quite sure, versus the fetal ejection reflex is when you're experiencing the fetal ejection reflex, it is not optional. You don't have a choice to not push. It's not a possibility. Your body is pushing. Your body's spontaneously bearing down. Just like if you were to throw up, you can't not throw up, right? Like it's going to happen. It's the same kind of thing. And so this can feel really empowering and exciting to experience a sensation where the body just kind of takes over. All you really need to do is soften and surrender. So this is a different model, a different approach. Instead of like, having to like follow these procedures and like add as much force as possible, you can just listen to your body and let your body intuitively push and let it guide the way. Instead of adding any extra force or effort or trying to control anything, relax your pelvic floor, relax your face and your jaw, soften your tummy muscles, relax your chest. As much as you can, make your orientation be relaxed. If the ejection reflex is kicking in, let it kick in. Let it take over and, you might want to even do a little grunt. Some moms are like, "Rah," like really loud, and other moms are just like, or something, So whatever you want to do, just let it happen. And then if you're not doing that, if the ejection reflex is over, go back to relaxing. So your job is just to relax and to get in whatever position feels most comfortable for you. It's typically pushing is very intuitive. Often it's very simple. We tend to overcomplicate it in the Western medical model, but it doesn't have to be that complicated. Usually your body will know what to do and your body will guide you, and all that you really need to do is to relax and surrender to it. Listen to your body, trust that your body knows what to do, and use all the coping tools and positions and support people and everything that you need to be as comfortable as possible while you're going through that process. So the reason why I wanted to teach you how to do that is because when it comes time to deliver the baby, so the baby's head is coming out, it can be really helpful to be aware of how to intuitively push, how to relax your pelvic floor to help slow this process down. If you're doing directed pushing all the way up to crown, you may be adding extra force to get the baby out faster, which can be helpful if you need to expedite delivery, if for some reason baby is struggling and needs to be born faster. But typically it's better to allow your body to deliver in a slow and controlled way. So let's talk about a couple different ways that babies can come out. So one way is the baby will start to crown and they'll come all the way to crown like this. And maybe before that, there's some contractions leading up to this, right? So maybe baby's head's coming a little bit visible and the tissues are stretching, and then they go back a little bit, and then they go back a little bit more, and then they're back a little bit, and then they're all the way to the crown on the next contraction. When you are here, I invite you to take this process incredibly slow. Slow it down as much as possible. So this is what I was talking about before when we were working on having our orientation be relaxed and letting the contractions and the spontaneous pushing efforts that are flowing naturally from our body to be the only force that we offer. So if your body's not spontaneously pushing, we want to relax. So same with crowning. If once you get to crowning, if your body stops pushing at crowning, which is pretty common, just relax. I know that this part can feel like there's a lot of pressure, and some moms at this point are like, there's a lot of pressure. I didn't prepare for this, maybe. I want to get the baby out faster. And so they'll tighten their tummy muscles and they'll add extra force and push the baby out faster. But what happens when we do this is we skip over this natural process of stretching that is really protective to our perineum. And so that's where the baby comes fully to crown. They come all the way here, the head comes out after that, and then the rest of the body follows. There's this slow process of each stage of the delivery of the baby's body. And when you allow that process to be slow, it can significantly reduce your risk for tearing because you're allowing the tissues an opportunity to stretch. If you can let the baby come to crown and just hold it. Take slow, deep breaths and just hold the crown for as long as possible. There's no need to add extra force and push baby out faster. Instead, just allow your tissues to stretch and hold the stretch as long as you can. I was not prepared for pushing and I had some emotional stuff come up. And so when I felt the pressure overhead, I was like, hell no. I added extra force and she just moved out of my body really fast. So I had the fetal ejection reflex, so my body spontaneously was pushing. I was listening to that spontaneous pushing effort and allowing my body to push. And when it wasn't pushing, I was moving back into the orientation that we want to be in that's most optimal when we're experiencing the fetal ejection reflex, which is to be fully relaxed. So I would push spontaneously and then I would relax in between the spontaneous pushes. But when my baby fully came to crown, the spontaneous pushing effort stopped for a moment. It paused. And so instead of allowing that to pause and holding that crown as long as I could, I added extra force. I tightened my tummy muscles and I intentionally, consciously would bear down and push in addition to what my body was already doing. And that brought her out so much faster. And I really believe that that is why I tore. With my second birth, I had practiced, and I'm going to teach you some of these practices here today for preparing yourself emotionally to be able to have the baby move through your body. And when he came to crown, I was like, he's crowning. I felt totally calm. I felt really chill. My husband was saying, go slow. And that's what we had practiced beforehand, him saying, go slow. And so when it came to that point, I was like, oh yeah, I have to go slow. And I just held the crown as long as my body was allowing me to. And the next contraction I had with that next spontaneous push, the baby automatically came out to head. And so this is what protected my perineum significantly that time, was allowing the crown to come and slowing that process down. Some people talk about, for slowing this process down, panting. You can totally do that if you want to. I don't typically teach that because I find that it's better to give you and your baby as much oxygen as possible to help baby tolerate this process of being squeezed. Take slow, deep breaths instead of going or whatever you see in the movies, or just like the fast panting thing. If you could instead have your baby come to crown and go, and just take slow, deep breaths, focusing on not adding any pressure, just allowing your baby to stretch. Typically, that is going to be the most supportive for protecting your perineum. After the baby comes to crown, one of two things can happen. So first, this is what happened with me with all of my births. The baby came to crown, and then the head came out, and then the rest of the body came out on the following contraction. So it was first crown, then I waited for a contraction. Then it was head, and then we waited for another contraction. So the baby's head was out for like 45 seconds in between contractions. After the head was out, then I had another contraction. The baby did their little rotation, and then they just, came out with that following contraction. Whoops. Depending on your position, depending on your anatomy, the way that baby is moving through your pelvis, the baby could come out in a different way. Sometimes they come to crown, and then they do head and body all in one contraction. So it really just depends, but just know it's biologically normal for your baby's head to come out and for the rest of the body to follow on the next contraction. But your baby should never have their head out and the body in for a full 60 seconds. At that point, it's considered a shoulder dystocia, which is very rare but can happen. And there are signs of that. Typically, if the baby's head comes out and they don't do that turn that they're supposed to do, and their head, maybe they only come out to the nose and they're kind of stuck here, that's a sign that the provider should probably step in sooner rather than later. But outside of that, or if there are any like heart tone concern issues for baby that would make the provider want to get baby out faster, if everything is unfolding smoothly, there's no reason, there's no benefit to pulling the baby out once the head is out. This is something that's important for you to be aware of because typically in the Western model, a lot of providers will want to start doing maneuvers to encourage the head to come out right after the head is out. And this is the way that I was trained. I'm a student midwife, and I was trained in more of a medical model for midwifery and a nurse midwifery model. And so I was trained to, once the baby's head was out, the baby would do, it's called restitution. They turn to the side. And then I would immediately put my hands on the baby's head like this and do downward traction. So I'm pulling down because the top shoulder has to deliver under the pubic bone, and that's the shoulder that delivers first. Both shoulders can't come out at the same time from the pelvis because the pelvis bones are keeping them in. So the baby has to turn and deliver one shoulder at a time. So I would do this little downward traction to get the baby's shoulder, top shoulder to deliver, and then I would do a little upward traction to get the bottom shoulder to deliver, and it kind of looks like a little like a little up down wiggle sort of a motion. And I felt like that process, that model of addressing pushing really did not align with me personally, because I felt like I was robbing people of the opportunity to birth their own babies on their own time. So it makes sense and it is necessary in certain cases to have a provider be hands-on, to touch baby, to encourage baby to come out faster. But most of the time, if everything is unfolding smoothly, there's really no reason to try to get baby to come out faster or to pull on the baby's head. So just know you have options around the delivery of your baby. You can have partner catch baby. You could catch your own baby. Provider could catch baby hands open instead of pulling. Might not be honored by every provider. So if you are not that sure if you trust your provider or not, but this is something that's really important to you, and if you're not in a place where you feel like you want to switch providers, then I would not let them anywhere near your baby during delivery, unless, of course, there is an urgent reason for them to need to access your baby to help them come out faster. You can also just deliver your baby in the water, just right into the water. You could deliver your baby right onto the bed, onto like a mat on the floor. Baby only really needs to be caught if you're standing or if you're in hands and knees and there's like a fall, then baby needs to be caught. But otherwise, baby can just come right out. This idea that we need to be like touching your body, protecting your perineum by like manipulating your genitals, stretching the vagina open, pulling the baby out. It's bullshit. It doesn't have any benefit routinely doing that for everybody on a case-by-case basis, never stretching the vagina open, but getting baby out can sometimes be helpful, but most of the time it's not necessary. So this is something that is important to know. And I invite you to really kind of, get clear on what it is that you want to experience for the delivery of your baby. If you want this process to be really smooth, if you want to have more agency, if you want to catch your own baby, if you want to be in an upright position, have your partner catch your baby, by all means, this is your baby and your body, and you don't have to do anything that you don't want to do. So let's talk for a minute about being on your back. Birthing on your back is the least optimal position to be in for the delivery of your baby. And the reason why is because for the pelvis needs to be mobile. It needs to be able to move a little bit while you're delivering your baby. And if you are like this, you're compressing the sacrum here and not allowing it to be able to move back. So really the sacrum should be able to move like this when the baby is coming out. And when we're like this, it compresses the sacrum. So it makes the space that baby is exiting a little smaller. That can increase the risk for tearing. And also a lot of moms typically, when it's time to push, they're told to get on their back, which is a position that's more convenient for the provider, but it doesn't benefit you or your baby. They're told to do directed pushing, where they hold their breath and count to 10 and engage their tummy muscles and push as hard as they can, and then take a breath and do it again. So they're kind of losing oxygen and they're getting exhausted. Provider is hands-on, which increases their risk for episiotomy. The other thing that I'll say is that that kind of environment, that model for addressing pushing, can feel stressful and overwhelming when you're lying back and these people are standing over you telling you what to do. You can birth like this if you want to. There's nothing wrong with it if that's what you want to do. But I just want you to know that pushing can look very different than what we typically see in birth videos on social media and in the movies. You can be quiet. You can roar. You can do whatever you want to do. You can be upright, moving your body. You could have no one touching you. You could catch your baby yourself in a room full of silence. You get to choose how you want this process to be. So I invite you to just be fully aware of the research and evidence, showing that some of those typical standard ways of supporting or addressing pushing are not evidence-based. They're just old, outdated birth rituals and routines that it takes like 10 to 20 years for new research and evidence to make its way into policy. So it's just taking a little while for more hospitals to offering more water birth and addressing pushing a little differently. So it kind of depends on where you are, how you're going to be treated and what you're going to be offered. But if you're in a facility that's going to be giving you a recommendation to just kind of do the conveyor belt thing, what they normally do, you can do that. And just know that you never have to do anything you don't want to do. You don't have to do directed pushing. You don't have to be on your back. You don't have to get a cervical exam to know that it's time to push. This is about you birthing yourself as a mother. This is about you bringing your baby into the world in alignment with your values and with your preferences. And you can absolutely do that safely while listening to your body, while honoring your self-agency and exercising it, and honoring your values and your preferences. I will say too, if any of you are interested in working with me or getting a little bit more support, kind of tailoring everything you're learning to your specific situation, you can just send me a message on School and we can talk about it. We can book a free call and talk more about your birth and just explore how I can support you. So feel free to send me a message. All right, everyone. Well, thank you so much for participating. It was really sweet to get to talk to you a little bit. Please feel free to reach out to me anytime if you have any questions. I'm here for you. I'm honored to have an opportunity to, support you and give you the information and education that you deserve. And I hope you all have a beautiful birth and a great day. Bye.